From courtside of the virtual hardwood, it's the NLSC Podcast, a weekly show for basketball gamers and hardcore hoopheads. This is episode 555. I am Andrew in our forum, Andrew NLSC on X. Joining me as always, my co-host Derek, DP3 in the forum, and DP3G and DP384 on X. Derek, fun stuff as always to chat about this week, so please, tip us off.
So our main topics today revolve around two community questions related to the player lock feature in basketball video games. However, Andrew, I wanted to start this show off talking about that new feeling, the feeling you get when you purchase a game that you were super excited about. Think about the feeling you got when you went to a midnight release, like my brothers and I did with NBA 2K13. The feeling you got when the game unlocked at midnight and you saw the installing message on the screen. The feeling of having the physical game in your hands, looking at the box art, opening up the case, and there is that new, beautiful disc that potentially holds hundreds, if not thousands, of hours of enjoyment. Andrew, when is the last time you felt that way about a basketball video game?
That's tough. It's certainly been a while since I've had a midnight release. In fact, that would probably be the PS4, NBA 2K14, and NBA Live 14. And of course, I didn't have a great first impression of either game, which is funny because 2K14 has become an all-time favorite since. Live 14, not so much, actually. Yeah, I'm trying to think back, but possibly NBA 2K17. It was a game that I really enjoyed right away. Actually, I think the most exciting would be NBA Live 06 PC, because that actually released in Australia earlier than it was supposed to. It was posted in our forum. Oh, it's on EB Games shelves right now. I was working at the time, put in a call to my mum. She was out running errands and said, look, I'll transfer you the money if you can pick up the game for me, and I'll get into that after work. And so yeah, I was able to play NBA Live 06 PC earlier than I was supposed to. Of course, we made a big deal about it in the forum, and that never happened again.
What was going through your mind when that game was installing?
I guess just pure excitement. I was really looking forward to Live 06. I loved the previous season. I was very excited for the game. I enjoyed 2005. 06 was shaping up to be a great game as well. And of course, you know, I can get into modding earlier. I can get into my rosters earlier. I'm not going to have to wait and be after the US release to check out the files and see what's hidden in the rosters, hidden in the databases, and actually get a start on my roster updates. So, very excited to play the game for myself and also start modding it.
What was the first thing you did when you installed that game? So it boots up. Where'd you go?
I think it was probably practice mode. That's often been my go-to over the years, has been diving into practice mode, shooting around, getting a feel for the controls, seeing if they're markedly different to the previous year, and then probably got into an exhibition game pretty soon. I'm guessing I played with the Bulls. It's been a while. Might have just played the default matchup of Spurs versus Pistons, the 2005 finals matchup, of course, the default teams in Live 06 when you're going to play now. But yeah, I think I would have gone into practice mode and then jumped into a play now game.
So for me, that excited feeling that I was talking about, you know, I had that feeling throughout my childhood, you know, with NBA Showdown, NBA Jam Tournament Edition, College Slam, NCAA basketball, Coach K college basketball, NBA Live 96 was a big one, NBA Live 98 PC, NBA Live 2000 PC, the original NBA 2K, etc. And then as an adult, NBA Live 2004 was a real big one, right? The excitement of putting that game on and throwing the Sacramento Kings on the floor because I loved to use them in video games at the time. And super excitement around 2K11 through NBA 2K17. But Andrew, one of the reasons this topic came to mind was today I purchased the Xbox One version of NBA 2K17 from a local store. I already have the PC and PS4 versions of that game, but I wanted to round out the collection.
Of course.
So for my brothers and I, NBA 2K17 was elite. We were still really excited about the series after 2K16. So when 2K17 became available, we had that feeling, the feeling of this is going to be epic. But just having my hands on NBA 2K17 for Xbox One, the box, seeing that Paul George cover, looking at the back of the box with the graphics, which now bring back so many memories, I actually got a similar feeling. And honestly, it wasn't a sad one either. Like, it was more of a celebratory feeling, and it made me want to put on the game. Just holding that game box made a ton of positive memories flood in. I know that you and I have talked about certain games in the past where it was almost sad when we picked it up again, because it's like this game, it's no longer new. Maybe we're not as fond of the series now, and that bummed us out, when we reacquired that game. But yeah, I didn't get that feeling with 2K17 today when I picked up the Xbox One version. Honestly, it just made me want to play it again.
Oh, of course, and 2K17 is a favorite of mine as well. And how special is physical media? I know that makes me sound so out of touch to say, but there is still a place for physical media in 2024. We can see the issues with games being taken out of digital storefronts, of being removed from libraries, and obviously streaming services losing TV shows and movies. Physical media is not immortal, I suppose. It's not. It can still degrade over time. It can get lost. It can get damaged, etc. But it's still more permanent in so many ways than digital content. So physical media, I love it. And like you say, you're looking at the box, you're looking at those screenshots. Now they're bringing back great memories, of course. They were pumping you up and making you excited about the new game the first time around. So yeah, physical media is really special, especially the ones we grew up with when you'd have those thick manuals, Derek, and the extras in the box. So cool.
My local Best Buy, Andrew, I walked through it recently, and as you noted, they removed the physical media. And now there's just big holes in the store. There's like big areas of the floor where there's no product, right? Because there was so much physical media,
Yeah.
And it is kind of sad to see that. It is sad to see that there's digital-only consoles that people spend, hundreds of dollars on. Kind of sad that computers are released today without a CD drive, including both of my brother's computers, like our main computers. They do not have a disk drive, so we have to use a external USB CD drive. So, I do find it kind of sad. I agree. Physical media, can technically last you forever, and there's something special about having your hands on that box and maybe having the game manual with it, and having all the text on the back of the box that explains the new features of the game and everything. It's just super cool, and that's why you and I, we are big advocates for physical media. So yeah, I just wanted to start the show off with that topic because, I got my Xbox One replaced. I got the 1 terabyte console, as I mentioned on a prior show. It's working awesome. I know it was a free refurbished one from GameStop, but I've had no hiccups so far. I got all the games I want installed on there. But yeah, nice to see that console is working, and long live physical media.
Absolutely. And of course, for a game like 2K14, for example, there was no digital release, or at least it's certainly not available anymore. So if you want to go back and play that, you either have to have a PS4 or Xbox One that's working, or you have to have the model of Xbox Series X or PlayStation 5 with the drive. Indeed, that is one of the reasons why I opted for the drive version of the PS5. It was more expensive, obviously, but I knew I wanted that backwards compatibility. It's also why I shopped around for a gaming PC that has an optical drive. I do have an external optical drive, but having that inbuilt one is certainly convenient. Frees up a USB slot for other things, obviously. But yeah, if you are a retro gamer, being able to play physical media is so important.
Yeah, in NBA 2K14 for Xbox One and PS4, you can find that great game with the My Career mode still intact and everything. Great graphics, great gameplay, just an awesome game. You can get that for dirt cheap.
Yeah.
Online, or if it's still available in local stores. Like I said, I picked that game up, I think, for $2 or $3 a couple different times. So, some of the best games of the past are dirt cheap. However, I want to tell you something. NBA 2K17 Legends Edition was actually available at the same local store that I picked up the one with the Paul George cover. And as you know, with NBA 2K17, the Legends Edition is Kobe, right? It's the Kobe Bryant cover. What do you think they were selling that for?
I'm guessing that was inflated, maybe over 20, was it? Or was it dirt cheap too?
$70.
Like
they
new.
Had, pre-owned.
Yeah.
$70 to $80 for each one of the NBA 2K17 Legendary Edition Kobe Bryant cover games. And that was just today. So they're still trying to capitalize on, Kobe passing.
Yeah, that
So
reminds
that's
me
still
of
happening today.
that reminds me of NBA 2K10 PC. Saw a sealed copy of NBA 2K10 PC on eBay for $1,000 US. That's crazy.
Give me a break.
Yeah.
Ridiculous.
Before we go on, a reminder that the NLSC podcast comes out every week on the NLSC, nba-live.com, as well as our YouTube channel. We're also on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and other podcast apps. If you're listening on any of those apps, we'd greatly appreciate a review. To keep up with the show and everything we're doing with basketball gaming in general, connect with us on social media. On Twitter and Facebook, we are the NLSC. We also have an Instagram, NLSC Basketball, and on YouTube, we're youtube.com/NBA Live Series Center. Once again, visit us at nba-live.com, where in addition to the podcast, you'll also find all of our original content, as well as our forum and modding community.
So let's get to the two community questions, Andrew, related to player lock. And I'm interested in your responses here because we have played video games together for years now. And there have been many times where, we did the player lock. And normally when you player lock with me, you're locking on a big guy. But I know that might be different if you're playing, with 4 other computer players, or if you were to run these lineups online with other gamers. So let's start with the 2000 stars. And you notice I like this 2000s theme lately.
Yes.
I've had a lot of nostalgia recently related to the early mid 2000s.
Same, actually.
So yeah. So I asked the community, I said, basketball gamers, this is your team and you are forced to lock on one player. Who do you choose and why? And the choices are Ben Wallace, Jermaine O'Neal, Peja Stojakovic, Jason Richardson, or Tony Parker. So I'm going to throw it over to you first. That's your team, Andrew. Who are you locking on?
Well, isn't it obvious? My all-time favorite player, Ben Wallace, of course. No. Tony Parker, probably if I'm playing against the CPU, because I'm so used to playing point guard in my career. But if I was playing with you, I think I'd either go for Jason Richardson, because so I could run and catch alley-oops from you. But probably, after the success we had in our 2K13 session, I think locking on a big would work really well. So I'm actually going to say Jermaine O'Neal.
Yeah, I knew you weren't going to say Ben Wallace. But yeah, I think Jermaine O'Neal would be a good fit. I thought you used Shaq pretty well there on NBA 2K13. And then obviously when we play arcade games, you're usually also locking on a big. Like
True.
When we play NBA Jam OFE, you're usually on Sean Kemp or Daryl Dawkins, etc. So, no, I think that's a good choice. I'm going with Jason Richardson. I've always loved the slasher, the big dunker, the versatile wing. Jason Richardson could dunk on your head, but also light you up from 3. He's been pretty awesome in every basketball video game that I've played, Andrew. My second choice would be Jermaine O'Neal because of the two-way play, the mid-range game, and his excellent post game. But let's see what the community had to say. Nate Stasho, Stasho Bro, the Live 01 legend, states Jason Richardson because dunking is the best part of basketball video games. I can't argue with him, Andrew.
Yeah,
we agree.
Logic checks out.
It's also the best part of real basketball, in
Agreed.
my opinion. The NBA and whatnot. Steven at the Live King states Jermaine O'Neal for sure, not because I'm a Pacers fan, but being a two-way big who plays both defense and offense would be fun. I wouldn't be bored. That's the thing with player lock. So my player lock is a go-to with my brothers and I. And we all carve out our rules. But when you're using a player that is only good on one side of the ball, or a player that has a limited skill set, you are just not going to have as much fun. And if you have a big who's good at defense, but can also post up, make moves, score points, all of that stuff, then you get to have fun on both sides of the ball, and you're more engaged in the action. So I definitely see where he's coming from there.
Oh, for sure. In fact, it reminds me of the old online team play. The original online team play mode actually called that was introduced post-release in NBA Live 08 for Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3, where you controlled NBA players, the forerunner to modern online team play modes, but instead of avatars, we were actually using real NBA players. The Celtics were a great choice for at least 4 people, because 4 people could control KG, Ray Allen, Paul Pierce, and Rajon Rondo. Of course, that 5th person, if you had that 5th player, would be stuck with Kendrick Perkins, probably not having as much fun as the other gamers. But also, when you're controlling a big, I find that you can be more engaged passively. I know that's a bit of an oxymoron to say, but you can set picks, you can box out, you can guard the paint, you can rebound. So even if you're not necessarily scoring a lot of points, which is obviously one of the most fun things to do in real basketball and on the virtual hardwood, you can still contribute and help out your teammates.
And you can outlet.
Yes.
Which means you're the one who starts the offense. Or if you have a mobile big, you can push the ball down the middle of the floor, right?
Right.
So, locking on a big can be super fun. Right now, our brothers and I are continuing our NBA 2K19 all-time fantasy draft roster. And I'm locked on Orlando Shaq. My brother Nick is locked on 88, 89 Jordan. And my brother Mark is using the rest of the players. And this works out very well. Yes, we did rig the draft, by the way, to get Shaq and Jordan. We said we allowed one rigging, one trade was allowed. And because you can't get Shaq and Jordan if you're doing the draft fairly.
Yeah.
But I wanted to lock on Shaq. My brother Nick wanted to lock on Jordan. So we were like, you know what? We're playing it on Hall of Fame. The computer can be challenging. So we're going to allow that. Anyway, the point is that I am so engaged from tip-off to end buzzer with Shaq. And Nick, of course, my brother Nick, locking on Jordan, that two-way play, Andrew. He's getting a bunch of steals. He's harassing ball handlers. He's flying in for blocks, etc. He gets that two-way play with Jordan. And my brother Mark just loves shooting threes. So he's using the rest of the players, and it's like Walter McCarty, video game legend Walter McCarty, and he has Kyle Korver. So me and Nick are looking for him all game so he can jack up threes and whatnot. It is really fun to do the player lock feature of a basketball video game, Andrew, if you can get creative with it.
Yeah.
If you're smart with it, etc. I think the dynamic that I have with my two brothers when we do this, it just makes it a lot of fun.
Oh yeah, underrated aspect of basketball gaming, player lock, for sure. I mean, career modes and online team play are all about being locked to a single player, but even in the NBA side of things, the traditional side of things, just locking to a single player, a lot of fun.
MP3 at Mike Purchard states, like I said in the previous question, I'd usually pick the big man. So in this case, given the choice, I'd roll with prime Jermaine O'Neal, who was massively underrated in his day with the Pacers. I think that Jermaine O'Neal was a ridiculous talent. And I agree with both the Live King and MP3 that he is fun to use in video games as well. And he's a great choice there. Royce states, J-Rich, his high-flying skills, shooting, etc. He was always a fun player to watch and play with in video games. Yeah, I agree. I think that I can't think of a game where Jason Richardson was underdone, really. I can't think of a basketball video game where I didn't enjoy using Jason Richardson. Maybe in some of the more recent 2Ks where they didn't give him proper dribbling and speed and acceleration and whatnot. Maybe he felt a little bit too slow. But in past video games, I would say that he's definitely not been underdone. At A Drew D states, J Rich, there's nothing he can't do offensively. And that's the thing is I love that versatile wing, as you know. It's the fact that Jason Richardson can shoot threes. He can slash. You can pull up in the mid-range with him. He can have athletic finishes at the hoop. You know I love those types of players.
And we had a great session of Live 2004 using the Warriors with a young J. Rich.
Oh, yeah, I remember that. Yeah, no, there were some good highlights from that game. Devin Ellis states, Ben Wallace. How dare he, Andrew?
Well, here's the thing. I wouldn't choose Ben Wallace because of personal bias and not being a big fan of him, but I do respect his talent, what he accomplished in the NBA, especially as an undrafted player. So he is a player that technically I would and could use player locked, It's just, again, personal bias, I wouldn't pick him specifically.
So I'm going to hop over to Discord now. Juicy Shack Meat states, happy belated birthday, D. Hope you had a great celebration. I appreciate that. Thank you. For this mailbag question, he states, I would choose Jermaine O'Neal and try to stat pad rebounds and blocks using their height and to have fun with his versatile scoring ability. He also says the same thing as it relates to my other community question, which is it's the same idea, but with current players, and he chose Lauri Markkanen, and we'll get to that in a moment. Avery states Jermaine O'Neal solely because he was a mid-post master. Definitely agree with you there, Avery. Thundershack states, if ratings and animations are done right, I'd probably lock on Jermaine O'Neal. Ben Wallace could be fun to roam around and protect the rim, though, as well. I generally enjoy Peja and J. Rich more for off-ball scoring, such as threes, off screens, or throwing lobs to J. Rich. Yeah, my brother Mark would choose Peja out of that list of players because he likes to roam off ball. He likes to shoot a lot of threes, etc. And I also think that he may be able to excel with Jason Richardson for straight line drives and three-point shooting as well. And Careless XCI states, I'm going with Peja. I actually use the off-ball feature quite a lot with him on Live 2004 and Live 2005, running him through screens and trying to get an open shot. At some point, it almost feels like a player lock when I'm playing with the Kings. Yeah, that off-ball feature was excellent, and it is fun using shooters like that in video games, but it's also fun to watch that in real life. One of my favorite things about Steph Curry in real life is that movement off the ball. He is constantly moving. He is constantly using screens and staggered screens, doing the V cut and popping out, etc. So, yeah, I definitely see where he's coming from there.
Yeah, and that off-ball control in NBA Live 2004, I believe that was the first time they brought that in, along with the 10-man freestyle, and it was in future games as well. I think they actually dropped it, though, with the next-gen version, another feature that was lost with that jump to 7th gen. But that's kind of an underrated improvement in the NBA Live series at the time. Obviously, it's very standard now to have off-ball controls, and there were some off-ball controls you could do give and go in the old games as well. If you held down pass, you could maintain control of the player that you passed with, but those off-ball controls were much deeper. Yeah, very underrated addition in Live at the time. And Juicy Shackman also mentions not having to deal with the pressure of bringing the ball up if you are locked on a big. And yeah, as much as I've enjoyed playing as a point guard in my career and in our online team play with NLSC Thrillho, yeah, that is pressure to bring the ball up and to distribute and take that playmaker role. And sometimes playing off ball can be a bit more relaxing. Absolutely.
Yeah, I do want to say that there's certain players in the past that are just point forwards or point power forwards that you can do that with and get that fix with without using a point guard, right? Or without using a shooting guard or something like that.
Oh,
like,
of course.
Like Dirk Nowitzki, right? Kevin Garnett in some video games, one man fast break, Charles Barkley, if you use him in, a video game modded in, etc. Being able to grab that board and head up the court. And yeah, as it relates to shooters and whatnot, it can be a more relaxing approach to just use somebody who's trying to get like an open three, right? Or get open to throw a pump fake and step in and take an outside shot. Somebody with a limited skill set. But for me, that's not as fun. So Andrew, the second question related to this player lock topic. Again, this is your team and you are forced to lock on one player. Who do you choose and why? And I used current NBA players for this question. I said Miles Turner, Lauri Markkanen, Brandon Ingram, Buddy Hield, or Darius Garland. So who'd you choose?
I think I'm going to go with Miles Turner. I want the blocking. I want that inside presence. I want to be that.
Not a bad choice. He can also step out and hit the outside shot.
True.
Too, right? And, little flip shots around the rim and whatnot. So, yeah, you can get some two-way play out of him. Obviously not close to the player that Jermaine O'Neal was, right? But you can get some similar feels with him. For me, I actually chose Brandon Ingram for some of the same reasons I chose Jason Richardson. But with Ingram, it's not about high-flying dunks. It's just the ISO game. The fact that he has that Kevin Durant build, the long and lean build, the fact that I can knock down threes with him or get him in the high post and operate. Ingram actually has a nice back to the basket game, mid-range game, smooth drives, etc. And defensively, he can cover a lot of ground because of his wingspan. My second choice here would be Darius Garland for his handles and his scoring ability. I think you probably noticed playing with me that I love point guards with good handles.
Oh, yeah.
Right? You saw the way that I used Derrick Rose.
Yes.
When we were playing NBA 2K25. I'm using the LeBron era roster. We've played many games in the past where you'll see me operating kind of at the top of the key with a point guard and trying to drive and dish or drive and dump, etc. And love great dribbling point guards. I love scoring point guards. I love, all around offensive point guards. So I think that I would also get a lot of enjoyment out of using Darius Garland.
No, that's a great choice, obviously. And Markkanen, I wouldn't be against that either. And I'd just like to say that it's great to see him emerge. It's a shame that he's yet another player who had to leave Chicago to really blossom. But, there was a lot of fans that were very harsh towards him and his development. So I'm glad to see him succeed in the NBA.
I mean, he has a skill set tailor-made for today's NBA, really. Yeah. I mean, he's tall, lean, loves to shoot the three, shoots an efficient percentage from three, and he's versatile on defense. I'm not saying that Lauri Markkanen is an excellent defender, but he can step out and switch on guards, right? The quicker players and everything. So he's actually tailor-made for today's NBA. I'm surprised that he wasn't given more of a chance in Chicago, right? I'm surprised that soured the way it did. And I'm guessing that you were hoping that would work out.
Oh, yeah. I don't think the current management really has a solid vision. They have made some good moves, but yeah, I just don't really think they know what they're doing or what they want to do to rebuild from this point.
I agree. So let's get to the community responses. MP3 at Mike Purchard states, ultimately for me, it would come down to Garland or Turner. When I used to play with friends, I'd take on the role of rim protector and rebounding. While I may have loved to run and gun and crossing over people with Garland, I assume he's saying they'd have fun crossing people over with Garland, he states, I'd pick Turner happily as he can block shots and pick and pop. So yeah, he would choose Turner, much like you. Royce states Garland or Markkanen. Garland because of his ball handling skill and running the team. Also, I would finally figure out the right stick dribbling in 2K25. I've always liked Lauri Markkanen and felt he got a raw deal in Chicago. I think he is on his way to be a Porzingis-like player. I think that offensively, Lauri Markkanen can sometimes bring you a little bit more than Porzingis because I think he's a little bit quicker. If he throws an up fake and steps in, he can take it all the way to the rack, where Porzingis oftentimes has to either take that outside shot or pass off, etc. Porzingis isn't as quick as Markkanen. I actually enjoy watching Markkanen more than Porzingis in real games. So I don't know if you share that opinion, but that's just the way it is for me.
Oh, I mean, both entertaining. I see where you're coming from, obviously. And I, once again, have to agree that he got a raw deal in Chicago, sadly. But I will say that while I just criticized Chicago's management for their lack of vision and shrewdness here and there, I do like the Kobe White pick. I like how Kobe White is turning out.
Day at the day has end 3D, so ended, but with a 3, says, if I'm playing with others, it would be Garland because point guard play lacks online and I'm not a dummy on the sticks. If it's just me and friends, I'd go with Buddy Hield. So, yeah, you can speak to that. How much do you hate point guard play online when you have to depend on random users? So he brings up a good point there. If you're talking about the online space, your choice could be entirely different.
Oh, yeah. It's just a wave of toxicity, obviously, and lack of basketball IQ. You've got people creating forward builds that aren't playmakers that still want to be point forwards, and they're doing a terrible job of it. You've got people not going to their spots and allowing you to run the team. It's very frustrating trying to defend as a point guard, especially if you've picked a build that doesn't have the right speed attributes and people are speed boosting and spamming exploitable moves behind screens. Yeah, playing a point guard online can be a lot of fun, especially playing with friends. Playing randoms online in the rec, Yeah, there's a reason I don't do that anymore, Derek.
Yeah, I think that you're better off being away from that. You seem a lot
Much better.
happier.
Yeah.
I feel like you getting back into retro gaming, into playing games you liked from the past. It's just changed your video game life for the better. So we did have two responses, Andrew, on Discord. Once again, Juicy Shock Meat chose Laurie Markkinen. Thundershack stated, for the modern day, probably Garland or Ingram. I've been effective with Ingram in the past, and he shared a box score where he put in 51 points in 22 minutes with Ingram on 22 of 30 shooting and 3 for 4 threes. So, yeah, he had the same choices as me. Brandon Ingram first, Garland second. He probably likes that ISO play just like I do, and Ingram's good at that.
And you have to play to your strengths and play to your style, especially if you are locked to a single player.
Exactly. So, Andrew, before we close the show, I wanted to bring up the NLSC top 10 plays of the week. So, if you noticed, this week we had 2 highlights from me and 2 highlights from you in there. And we are coming up on year 5. Right now we're year 4, week 27. So year 5, we're coming up on year 5 of this countdown. And week in, week out, it's been absolutely awesome. We get some regular contributors. The highlights never disappoint, etc. But I want to encourage the community to get involved. I want to make sure that we want to see those highlights, and we want to put your name on those highlights, and we want to get it in that weekly countdown. I have tens of thousands of highlights, you know this, on my computer that have been saved up over the years related to my sessions. So highlights from me, my brothers, etc. You have sent me a ton of highlights. And we've had regular contributors who, just have been week in and week out awesome as far as getting us an awesome highlight. But, this is a community initiative. The countdown doesn't exist without you, the community, without you, the basketball gaming base and whatnot. So send me those highlights, whether you record it off your console or your PC, etc. Get in touch with me, post it on the forum in the NLSC top 10 thread, or you can connect with me on Twitter at D43G and shoot me a DM with a Google Drive link or a YouTube link, or however you can get me the highlight. I don't care. Mediafire link, whatever. But I want to see your highlights. I want to include them in the countdown. You get shouted out when you're in the countdown because the highlight is attached to your name. So, yeah, get me those highlights.
Definitely get involved. It's great to see the community sharing those awesome moments each and every week. And we had a comment on the latest top 10, actually, Derek, asking how you can record highlights. And I know what you're going to say, Derek. Morales Action.
Yeah. So Action is great, but OBS is free, right?
True.
So Action does cost $20. There is a free version of it, but it has the watermark. But while I use Action for most of my recording, I also use OBS at times, and it's free. It can record in 1080p at 60 FPS. And yeah, as far as how to record on PC, applications like OBS and Morales Action are awesome. AMD Relive, which, so if you have an AMD card, it actually has capture software built into it, and that works very well. I've used that at times. I believe NVIDIA also has built-in capture software. Or if you're really desperate and you don't want to download one of those applications, or you don't have that software on your computer for some reason, you can always use Xbox Game Bar. But Xbox Game Bar kind of sucks because it's 720p and it's only at 30 FPS, and it's blah. Like, just the quality really isn't there. It's very limited, which I find kind of sad. I feel like, at this point it should be better than that.
For sure.
But it isn't. And for recording off of consoles, I mean, you could do it via an Elgato, right? If you have an Elgato HD60 or HD60S or something above that, you can use that. Otherwise, we know with the newer games, with NBA 2K25, 2K24, 2K23, you can record that clip on your console. And actually, you can do that with like NBA 2K17, 16, 15, 14 as well on Xbox One and PS4. Record the highlight on your console and email it to yourself or upload it to YouTube or however you can get that out there and share it. There are ways, right? So, like, there's definitely many different ways you can capture footage and share them.
You can also copy to USB. At least you can on PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5. That's how I was recording off those consoles originally. Now I do use my Elgato, of course, for the better quality. Also should bring up that Steam recently introduced recording as well. I haven't checked it out yet, Derek. I haven't tested it, so I'm not sure what the quality's like. But in addition to the screenshot feature, Steam does now offer recording as well.
I have not checked that out, but it's intriguing, right?
Yeah.
Because if it has a hotkey feature.
It does, yeah.
And it's that easy to use. Yeah, I mean, and it spits it out in like MP4.
Yep.
Or something like that. Like, I think that could be a game changer for a lot of people. The hope would be, and like I said, I haven't checked it out yet. The hope would be is that it's 1080p at 60 FPS and that it's smooth. So I might have to give that a try before we record next, just so I can get feedback on it.
I'll give it a try as well. I do think, from memory, there is the hotkey. You can also set it to record flashback recording. I believe it does support that as well. So, yeah.
That's huge. Time shift.
Yeah, time shift.
Time shift recording, for those who play sports video games, that is a major game changer.
Huge time saver.
It all the time. I
use
it
comb
in
through
OBS.
a long file. Yeah.
Yeah, in OBS it's called replay buffer.
Yep. I believe it's there, yeah. So there's some options you can have and output options as well, so we'll have to check it out.
Yeah, one thing that's great about OBS and Action with their time shift options is that you can select however many seconds you want for recording past action. So like I'll usually set it to either 12 or 14 seconds. So when I hit a key on my keyboard, it records the prior 12 to 14 seconds that happened. On AMD Relive, because I have an AMD card, I have the 6650 XT, it only allows you to do 15 seconds or more for their time shift option. But yeah, for those who have never experienced time shift or an OBS, it's called replay buffer, get on that because it's a great way to capture highlights.
And of course, once again, send them along to you, Derek, to be featured in the top 10.
Absolutely. I want the community to get involved. I love doing the top 10 every week, and I don't plan on stopping it for years to come.
But yeah, by all means, remain involved with the top 10. Keep watching the top 10 every week and checking out our other features. Monday Tip-Off, Wayback Wednesday, Friday 5, and of course the NLC Podcast, Derek.
Yeah. I think that there's a lot of great content going up on the NLSC YouTube related to gameplay videos, the top 10, the podcasts themselves, etc. Still quite a bit of activity on the NLSC forums as far as, thread activity and whatnot. And our Discord keeps growing, right? We get a lot of basketball gamers on the NLSC Discord, a lot of great conversation going on in there. No drama, which is excellent. We've had no drama on that Discord. So, get involved with the NLSC if you're not already.
Absolutely. And as a final housekeeping note, we are currently working with our hosts to make some overdue upgrades. They're helping us out with some database optimization and conversions, so we do expect to be running at tip-top shape again very soon. But once again, the content is going up there and on the NLSC YouTube channel. And Derek, we are definitely going to have to connect on NBA Live 18 now that you've got that set up again.
Yeah, I mean, Xbox One had so many good basketball video games and games that you and I like to connect on. In fact, our road trip, which we're about 70% finished on NBA Jam on Fire Edition, is off of my Xbox One. So we have to continue that as well. But yeah, more gameplay videos to come.
Still crazy that we can do that on the opposite sides of the world.
Yeah, it blows my mind. I feel fortunate. I feel like we're lucky to be able to do this. And the technology just keeps getting better.
Definitely. So look out for that. But in the meantime, that has brought us to the end of this week's show. As always, thank you for tuning in, and please join us again next week and every week on the NLSC, nb-live.com, our YouTube channel, or wherever you listen to podcasts. In the meantime, make sure you're following us on social media. That's where you can get in touch with us, and of course, stay up to date with all of that aforementioned content. So Derek, go ahead and plug the handles.
You can find me on X, formerly known as Twitter, at D43G and at D4384. I'm also on the NLSC, D43, and on YouTube, D43.
As for me, I'm Andrew in the forum and Andrew NLSC on X. The NLSC is on X and Facebook at the NLSC. We're also NLSC Basketball on Instagram and Threads. We're on YouTube at NBA Live Series Center. And of course, keep a look to the NLSC itself, nba-live.com, for everything we do for basketball video games. So, thank you once again for tuning in, and until next time, I'm Andrew.
And I'm Derek.
Go get buckets, everyone.